using a head pin. So I have just grabbed a handful of the most glorious beads from my large bowl of bead soup, and I want to show you now how to simply use one head pin to turn one of these into a charm or an earring dropper. So sometimes your head pins won't be 100% straight, we just need to give those a little bit of a straighten. Adding a little bit of warmth as ever is always going to be beneficial to working in any wire. So this is a ball type head pin, it's quite a long one, so we could use that for any of the beads really. Your only discretion is to find a bead which will fit on the metal. So this fits really very nicely. We could add one bead, we could add a number of beads. I'm just going to pop those two on for now, and that would make a beautiful charm. It would also make a lovely earring dropper. I'm going to show you with both a simple loop and a wrapped loop how to use your head pin to create usable jewellery functions. What I'm going to do is pop in with my bent chain nose pliers. Now you could just use chain nose pliers, but you do need them to have straight and flat sections to work with. So we've got two flat sides of the pliers coming together. I'm going to hold that just above the point at which the top bead sits, and what I'm going to do to start with is to create a right angle bend. So I've gone for a rondelle and a round bead, and they will spin really beautifully. The next tool that I'm going to use are my round nose pliers to create a loop up at the top. I'm going to show you, as I said, two types of making loops with head pins today. The first is a simple loop. So I'm going to put the round nose pliers a little bit down a ways so we have a reasonable size loop to work with, and a little bit further down the wire. So what I've done is I've created the first half of a circular form. I'm going to then put the pliers back into position. If I've just flipped those sideways for you and hold them a little bit interestingly further down, what I'm going to do now is take the tail of the wire all the way around and across. I'm going to remove those pliers now and find my flush cutters. Now this is a simple loop. It's not something that you would want to use in jewellery which will see a lot of action and movement, but it is something that you can use for the fastest pair of earrings in the world and for adding on lightweight beads to other jewellery. I'm going to take those flush cutters, flush side facing the wire we're leaving and the concave side to the wire that we're trimming away. I'm going to make sure that that's in the correct position before snipping that excess off. And what I will then do is make sure that I make a perfect circle with that form that we've created, and that the tail end meets with the neck section. When I'm happy that that sits perfectly in position, what I'm going to do is give that a really hearty squeeze. Now I'm not looking to change the shape of the wire in the head pin from round to flat, I'm merely adding some work hardening. And in this way you have an openable loop, so we can open that up. You can attach that onto bracelets or bangles or onto earring findings. Once it's into position, you can close that up, and we're opening and closing as if we're opening and closing a jump ring. So that is your very simple loop, or open and closable loop using beads with Jessie James. I'm going to show you now again with the same head pin. It's a long silver colour head pin, and I'm just going to make sure that that's quite straight. We have a ball end on here which will stop the beads from falling away. So on this occasion I'm going to pop just one bead on. You would need to check that the ball on the end, sometimes you will find a disc on a head pin, doesn't come through the hole at the base of the bead. Once you've loaded on as many or as few of those beads as you wish, we're going to pop those pliers in exactly the same way. If I turn that sideways, push a right angle into position, and the next part is exactly the same as if we were forming that open and closable simple loop. Round nose pliers, pop them a little way down so that we get a nice sized loop to work with. I'm going to rotate those pliers around to get the first half of that round form. Pop the pliers back into position and draw the tail across. Now that's opened up slightly, that's absolutely fine because we can pinch that down and just reform that as we did the first time round to get that nice circular shape. Once we're happy with the form, I'm just going to make that slightly more round. Once we're happy with the form, we're going to do a very similar manoeuvre. Open and close the pliers slightly more gently on the round section of the loop, but not where the one wire crosses over itself underneath. What we're then going to do is support that loop and draw the tail of the wire going over the top of the neck of your charm, all the way around and underneath. Now we can pull that around as many times as we desire to fill in the bare section of wire above that bead. If you're making earrings, it pays to do this step by step so that you get the same number of loops running around that central core, the same number of coils rather. So what I'm going to do again is come in with those flush cutters, making sure that they are hovering not over the loop we've created, only over the tail section which we wish to remove. Make sure that you police your offcuts, pop them in the scrap pot for later. And then I'm just going to finish that by rotating the pliers around in the same direction that the wire has been cut. So the wires come over the top, it ends just here, and I'm going to give that a tiny squish and a squeeze to make that neat and tidy. You can then straighten up your loop a little bit if it has gone awry. So that is your simple introduction to using head pins to create charms, drops and very simple earrings.